Okay, good evening, all of you. So today is a very interesting article that appeared on 15th of June. Today is 16th. Yesterday, this was an article appeared in Economic Times. It was written by Andy Mukherjee. He is a senior journalist from Bloomberg. Bloomberg is in fact an international organization, but he must be a very learned person. But if you look at the article, it has posed more questions than answers. There are so many questions raised in this article. But of course, some of the questions, most of the questions are found to be correct. But it doesn't mean we can totally paint a gloomy picture as far as the Indian economy is concerned. So let us try to balance this article. But let me tell you very frankly, I have not changed even a single word out of the article. As it is, I have used the wordings mentioned by the author. So therefore, you can also easily follow it so that you can also understand what kind of language the international people use as far as the economy or economics is concerned in the international magazines. So now he first started this article with a, a kind of observation. Very recently, the Mercedes-Benz, the car maker of the Germany, has launched a new vehicle called Maybach. It's a very highly reputed and very costly vehicle across the globe. Maybach roughly costs 3.5 crores. One vehicle costs 3.5 crores. But of course, there are so many Mercedes-Benz variants already available in the country. For the first time, they have launched this particular variant in the country, Maybach. So actually, the company was expecting to sell some 50 vehicles in the entire year. Some 50 vehicles to be sold in the entire year during 2021. But incidentally, what happened? Within a month, all the 50 vehicles have been booked by people. Within a month, in just a span of 30 days, all the vehicles have been booked. So, what does it indicate? So, there are so many takers in the country. On one hand, the pandemic is devastating the country. The economy is almost at the lowest ebb ever since we attained the independence. But on the other hand, the super rich people, the rich people are really enjoying a lot. But earlier also I made this kind of comment. But if you recall, earlier in one of the episodes, I was also mentioning that during the pandemic period, the super rich people's wealth has gone up by 35%, according to an estimate. The super rich people wealth has gone up by 35%, 35%, according to one estimate. At the same time, the poverty has also gone up. I will come to that little later. So there is a paradoxical situation prevailing in the country. The pandemic has really inflicted a lot, and many people have lost their livelihoods. Yesterday, I also was mentioning almost 15 million jobs have been lost. Even the big software companies have also retrenched so many people. They are working with only half the capacity. And there are so many this kind of issues we are already aware and we are witnessing. But at the same time, the rich people are really enjoying. So this is a classic example of booking all the 50 vehicles in one go. Now, now let me read out the sentences please follow the sentences very carefully. So sometimes you may also expect the questions with the same kind of language. Don't expect the questions in a very simple English language. So the English can be very complex, very complicated at times. Not every time, at times. So it is always better to acquaint yourself with this kind of language. So it turns out that just as the rich were scrambling to own these 3 crore vehicles, annual per capita income was sliding below 2000. So he's just making a comparison. Here there are two takeaways. One is the rich people are able to purchase vehicles, even though 3 crores, 4 crores vehicles. On the other hand, the national per capita income is sliding below $2,000. Now you have to immediately remind yourself what exactly is the per capita income before the pandemic. So, so here I am putting a lot of questions in this session. I will not give you an answers also, but what exactly is the per capita income prior to pandemic? But of course, you are quite aware, around 2,200, around $2,200, $2,200. If it is PPP, purchasing power parity, according to the international organizations, it is almost around $7,000. But let us not count this PPP figure at all, because we don't have the PPP calculation mechanism existing in India. Therefore, our per capita income was 2,200. Now it is sliding, it is slipping below 2,000. So flag the issue, flag the issue. So per capita income is decreasing. That is the final takeaway. Now, what is the other takeaway? With the country falling behind neighboring Bangladesh. So again, we are making comparison with the one of the poorest countries, Bangladesh. But please mind, Bangladesh is no longer a poor country. It is definitely far, far better than India. I will also come up on one day what exactly are actually demarcating between India and Bangladesh. Its GDP growth rate is far, far ahead of India. Even the poverty percentage is also less than India. And naturally, their per capita income is now almost equal to India. So they are fast progressing. So anyhow, later we'll discuss that comparison with Bangladesh. Now he made particular reference to Bangladesh. So now there are two takeaways. One is rich are enjoying. Second is per capita income is decreasing. Third is we are inferior, even inferior to Bangladesh. That is the third important thing. So the next statement, emerging economies have historically tolerated higher inequality, hoping to hit the inflection point in the Kuznets curve, beyond which incomes keep rising out of disparities fall. Of course, it is a rather complex sentence to understand, but let me elaborate. Emerging economies have historically tolerated higher inequality. This is one sentence. You know the meaning of the inequality gap between rich and poor. It will be normally measured with Gini coefficient. So in India, you are already aware, the inequality is very, very high, as is the case of so many emerging economies. But incidentally, in India is one of the countries having the highest inequality. And of course, very recently, continuously, there are two organizations coming up with the inequality index. One is Oxfam, the other is Credit Suisse. These are the two agencies coming up with the inequality index very often. And according to the latest Oxfam report, you are already aware, the top 10% of the people are garnering 73% of the wealth of the country. Top 10% of the people are taking away, top 10% of the entire India are taking away 73% of the entire income. And of course, in the same report, it was also mentioned the top 1%, that means super rich, super rich. They are garnering, they are getting almost 53% of the income. So what is left hardly? If you remove all the 10% of the people, what is hardly left is only 30%, even not 30%, around 27%. So that 27% is being shared among almost all the 73% of the population. So what is hardly shared by each of the citizen is nothing, peanuts. So now this is the statement. Immediately you have to link it with the Oxfam report or Credit Suisse report. You have to flag these issues. Yes. Again, we'll discuss all these issues. Now, hoping to hit the inflection point in the Kuznets curve. What is Kuznets curve? What is Kuznets curve? I think earlier also, if I remember well, I explained it a little to some extent, but I'll explain it elaborately now. What is Kuznets curve? Kuznets is an economist way back in the 60s and 70s in between. He came up with a model stating that in the process of development of any country, if the country is progressing in the process of development, initially the inequality widens, inequality increases because only few people will catch up with the development. Naturally, the development is confined to only few people. The people who are lagging behind, automatically they are at the bottom of the pyramid. Therefore, naturally, the gap will widen. How long? This gap will widen up to a particular point. At that point, again, the poor will also try to catch up. They will catch up and they will also grow. And as a result, automatically, the gap between rich and poor will be narrowed. So subsequent development takes place equitably. That means both rich and poor will develop equally. So there will not be any gap between rich and poor. So this is called Kuznets proposal. I will show you in the next slide. Now, this is called Kuznets curve. Initially, in the process of development, the rich will grow very fast. Yes. Now, the gap between the rich and poor, this is inequality. This is inequality. The gap between rich and poor widens, increases. Yes, increases. But once the whole economy reaches a particular stage, the people who are behind will also run fast and try to develop, and automatically they will also catch up the rich. So automatically the gap will be closed down. As a result, the gap will be again narrowed down. So at one point of time, there will not be any difference between rich and poor. Say it is an inverted U-shape curve. This is called Kuznets curve. But on paper, it looks very good. Yes, theoretically, it sounds very good. So initially, only few people will try to race, but subsequent other people will also catch up with the race. And finally, after one point of time, both both the kinds of people will be equalized. So subsequently, there will not be any disparities between rich and poor. The per capita income or the wealth will be one and the same for both the kinds of people. But in reality, you are quite aware, this is totally unfounded. This is totally unfounded. In particularly emerging economies. Maybe it may be true after 1000 years or after 2000 years, we don't know. But as far as emerging economies, the current situation, what is prevailing across the globe, very clearly showed that this Kuznets curve is unfounded. But you just eliminate all those big countries, the rich countries. But in rich countries, maybe the rich poor gap may be very, very little, but the conditions may be different. The development models they might have adapted might be different. There could be so many reasons for the narrowness between the rich and poor in those countries. We cannot generalize. We cannot simply say Kuznets curve actually functioned very well in those countries. We cannot say that. So therefore, Kuznets curve is only an imaginary situation. Initially, there will be gap between rich and poor. Subsequently, the gap will be narrowed down. Again, I am going back. Now, now emerging economies have historically tolerated high inequality. So India is tolerating the high inequality because with a hope that subsequently the inequality gap will be narrowed down, believing the Kuznets curve. So that is what it means. So the merits of the controversial hypothesis, the gap opened up by COVID-19 is no price of progress. So he is relating this to the current gap to the COVID pandemic situation. So the COVID pandemic, as I already mentioned, devastated, inflicted the entire economy, and particularly the poor people are the biggest. They received the biggest blow. Okay, now the author has also come up with certain observations. I'll go through very quickly. The situation that India finds in today reflects a lack of fiscal imagination. This is a very excellent statement, but it requires a lot of elaboration. But I don't think this is the time to explain this. But please flag this issue. Please note down the statement as it is. The situation that India finds itself in today reflects a lack of fiscal imagination. As I already mentioned, sometimes you will get the questions in the main examination, absolutely the same kind of headings. In the main examination, you look at the same question and explain or describe, offer your remarks. So this will be put in inverted commas. So the current situation, okay, it is already reflected in the previous slide. But what is the statement of the author? A lack of fiscal imagination. That means government is not at all taking care of all these factors into consideration when it comes to the poverty eradication. Poverty eradication. So now they have come up with a lot of assessments. Brisk sales of luxury cars. Okay, this is one of the symptoms of lopsided development of the economy. And soaring net worth of billionaires amid pandemic, that is missing here, amid pandemic. soaring net worth. So already I have already mentioned it about the billionaires net worth is increasing by 30 to 35% according to some estimates. Okay. Widespread joblessness, immediately you have to figure out what is the joblessness currently. Yesterday I was mentioning it to you. It is almost 14%. So maybe there is a slight slide today around 12 to 13%. You have to keep watching these figures. So immediately you have to immediately recall those figures whenever this kind of words you come across. So joblessness is almost around 14%. Depleted savings, but anyhow depleted savings I will discuss it later. But you are already aware, according to the economic survey, the savings rate is only around 29% of the GDP. Savings rate, of course, capital formation rate is also around 29%. Sometime back, I remember I explained to you. So both savings and capital formation is more or less at the same level, 29%. So 29% is very, very less when compared to the other advanced economies. Okay, anyway, we'll discuss that later. And poor households ate less last year. So what does this mean? Poor households ate. They consumed less. What they consumed? Food. So immediately you have to relate this statement to the hunger index. That should immediately come to your mind. What is hunger index? The people who are starving without any food. So very recent the hunger index says India's score is 102 out of 120 countries. We are almost at the rock bottom. So hunger index. Now, what is the advice of this author? He has come up with an advice. What is his advice? The economists are warning of another wave of intense food deprivation. So that means yesterday also I was while I was discussing the inflation, the wholesale price index went up to almost 14%, 13%, and the retail price index has soared to almost 6.3% beyond the target of 6%. So while mentioning that inflation, the main culprit is again food prices. The food inflation was as high as almost 20 to 30%. So now you have to relate this to that point again. So inflation is already very high as far as food is concerned. So the people are already in hunger according to 102 hunger index. So in future, the food availability may be very, very scarce. That means more and more people will be under the food deprivation category. But now you have to immediately relate this also to what was the food grain output. Earlier I told you 306 million tons. So this year the food grain output was a record 306 million tons. Then what really is causing the food deprivation? On one hand, we are achieving the record bumper harvest 306 million tons. On the other hand, so many people are not able to get a square meal. What is this paradox? So this is again another question. Now, the state's reluctance to do more could prove costly. It is a warning. State means government. The government is not really taking action as far as all the issues is concerned. So the government should come up with proper action, and otherwise it becomes a costly issue, costly problem, a costly mistake rather. So what does this mean? So more and more people will fall into the category of the poor, and economy will totally plunge down. So finally the country will go back to almost some 10-15 years back. Retrogressive walk, retrogressive development. So this is the final piece of advice given by the author. Okay, I think I believe you have followed all these things, but at every point you have to mention, you have to note down whatever I have mentioned orally. Okay, now coming to the latest actions or activities taken up by the government. Initially, as a part of the Atmanirbhar package, you are already aware, 11 lakh crores package was announced. Out of these 11 lakh crores of package, the fiscal stimulus is not even around 2 to 3 lakh crores, just around 2 lakh crores. The rest of the 9 lakh crores is provided by a way of monetary stimulus. That means through loans through the banks. But what is the most demanded thing in the times of the crisis, economic crisis across the globe? Even in America, I also mentioned it to you. They printed currency and distributed money like anything. Immediately, we should remember the concept called helicopter money. So, as if the helicopter is sprinkling the money in US and some of the advanced countries, they sprinkle the money like anything. But the same thing was also proposed to the country India, but unfortunately, it was not heeded by the government. No, 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 no. We cannot distribute the money just like that. We'll make the people work. We'll provide Narega works, and we'll also provide sufficient loans through the bank so that the people will automatically able to come up on their own. But the fiscal stimulus was just confined to only the food grains. So for 800 million people, almost 80 crore people, the government supplied free food for 6 months. Subsequently, that was enhanced. Again, in the wake of the second wave of pandemic, again, the government has extended the program for another 6 months. Of course, this is a good development, but still it is not sufficient. That is what the other feels, but anyway, we'll discuss it later. Now, additional wheat and rice entitlement to the poor, as was done last year. Yet, in the absence of incomes, the bottom quartile of the population had to drastically cut down the expenditure. Now, this is again another question. Okay, the government is able to supply a lot of food grains to all the people. What about the other dietary needs like protein intake, fat intake, minerals, vitamins? By consuming just rice, you will not be fully sufficient. You will not get all these additional things like proteins, fats, and vitamins, and minerals, etc. So the rice and wheat provides only you carbohydrate. So carbohydrate supplementation is not enough to make a person happy or with sound health. So what is needed is, so some kind of protein supplementation, fat supplementation is needed. Therefore, now the other says, okay, supply of rice is good, but what about the other issues? So the government is not able to provide any of these things. Therefore, automatically it leads to malnutrition. Malnutrition leads to a lot of health related disorders. Okay. Now, very recently, Azim Premji University has come up with a proposal, but of course, they have come up with a report. Anyhow, let us discuss this Azim Premji committee report on the poverty maybe tomorrow. But for the timing, let us confine myself to only the present advice, piece of advice given by the Azim Premji University. But as you are aware, very recently they have come up with a report stating that the pandemic has driven so many people into the poverty back. But at one point of time, the United Nations has complimented India for bringing out so many people out of the poverty. Almost 600 million people have been brought out of the poverty. So this is the compliment made by the United Nations. But now again back to the square. So this COVID pandemic again pushed all of them back to the poverty once again. So this is what was the observation made by the Azim Premji University. So to avoid a second straight year of nutrition crisis, it is critical to provide poor households an immediate sustenance income. So what they are suggesting is, okay, you are providing food grains, that is good, but it is not sufficient to maintain good health or to make them active so that they can also actually participate in the economic process, economic developmental process. But not just food grains is not enough to make one really happy or active or dynamic. So what is required? Some amount is also required. Some cash is also required. Some liquid cash is to be given to all these people. How much they are proposing? At least 150 rupees a day. Because that's what exactly they lost during the pandemic as wages. So you provide food grains. Also you provide some fiscal stimulus by way of some cash. This is nothing but helicopter money. Just pump in some money into the poor people. It has not been done by the government. Okay. The proposed cash transfer is equal to incomes lost last year. Okay, whatever they lost in the during the process of the pandemic, that has to be compensated. This is the advice given by the Azim Premji University. Now, but of course, there is no response from the government. This is the last word they mentioned in the report. Now, other comments. The Premji University also made some other comments, but every word is very, very important. Please be very cautious. Obsessed with keeping a lid on borrowing costs. The same word, I have not changed any of these words. Absolutely, whatever is presented in the newspaper, I absolutely copied the same thing. Because you need to know this kind of language. Obsessed with keeping a lid on borrowing cost. Keeping a lid is a phrasal verb. Keeping a lid means controlling, regulating. So obsessed. So it is so obsessed for regulating the borrowing cost. What does this mean? So on one hand, I am saying the government has provided a lot of liquidity through the banks, but on the other hand, the borrowing costs are regulated. Borrowing costs are regulated means the interest rates levied on the borrowings are even today they are very high. But of course, unless you make a comparison with other advanced economies, you cannot really understand whether the borrowing cost is really high or low. But of course, it is a general opinion all over the world. But in India, the borrowing cost is very high. Of course, even if you put your money in the form of deposit, you will get 4 to 5% of the interest. If you put the same 100 rupees in USA, you'll get hardly 1% interest. But in India, you'll get 4 to 5%. So the deposits will also attract higher interest. At the same time, if you borrow money in USA, the interest levied will be 2 to 3%. But in India, it is 10 to 15%, depending upon the kind of project. So the borrowing cost is so high in India because we in the sense, the RBI or the government feels, so that is the best source of income to the government. Okay. Now the government is making things worse for the common man by its regressive consumption taxes. So again, it has a lot of meaning. So regressive actions. Regressive means backward, pointing towards back. So the regressive action they are pointing out is consumption taxes, particularly the taxes levied on the consuming items, particularly they are referring to petrol. You are already aware the petrol cost is actually 30 rupees. Central government tax is again 30 rupees. State government tax is again 30 rupees. So what does this mean? So total it is coming to, including the dealer margin and other margin, it is coming to 100 rupees. Out of 100 rupees, the actual cost of the petrol is only 30 rupees. The rest of the 60 rupees is levied as taxes. So exorbitant tax rates are also prohibitory, inhibitory for the development. And by a very high dependence on cheap money from the central bank. What does this mean? They are not mentioned any, they are not given any clarity, but you have to understand. So what exactly they are referring to? And a very high dependence on cheap money from central bank. What is central bank? Central bank is nothing but Reserve Bank of India. Cheap money dependence on Reserve Bank by whom? Government. This is all a discussion referred to the relating to the government of India's actions. So the government is relying heavily on the Reserve Bank for cheap money. If you recall, very recently the government of India has got almost 99,000 crores, close to 1 lakh crores from Reserve Bank of India. I think I mentioned it to you already. If I remember, I also show you on the graph. During the last 2-3 years, the government has got almost 5 lakh crores from Reserve Bank. So this was also the bone of contention between the Urjit Patel, the earlier former Reserve Bank governor, because he was totally against the passing on this money to the government of India. Therefore, he had to quit. But now the things are moving very smoothly. Very recently, the Reserve Bank has transferred 1 lakh crores to the Reserve Bank. So they are referring to the cheap money without any effort. Without any effort, the government is earning revenue from Reserve Bank. And excess liquidity, yes, the banks are flooded with money, there are no takers. The banks are flooded with money, there are no takers because of exorbitant interest rates and uncongenial economic situation prevailing in the country. So reflected in the elevated asset prices. So you see, this statement is creating what on paper looks like an oasis of opulence in a desert of despair. A very beautiful sentence. A oasis of opulence. Opulence means wealth. Opulence means wealth. A oasis of wealth in a desert of despair. Despair means disappointment. So this is nothing but absolutely it is like a daydream. It is like a daydream. So the government is claiming to have provided a fiscal a stimulus of 21 lakh crores, 11 lakh crores, but it looks on the paper, but in reality, it is like an opulence of in a desert of despair. So it is of no use. That's what the author says. Economic power flowing from workers. This is also very important statement. The economic power flowing from workers and uh, and small enterprises towards large firms, uncontested, if not aided by fiscal policy, is boosting their valuations. It has a lot of meaning, in-depth meaning. So the people who are working at the grassroots level, like small MSMEs or small entrepreneurs, small industries, but finally the wealth created by the small people is going towards flowing towards the big people. Only the rich and big people are becoming super rich, but the poor are becoming poorer, as evidenced by the fact that most of the 50% of the MSME units were shut. But on one hand, this is happening. On the other hand, if you recall, the foreign exchange reserves are also piling up in India. Almost we have crossed for the first time $600 billion is the forex reserves. So lot of forex reserves are flowing into the country, but on paper it looks very positive thing. But on the other hand, where exactly this money is coming from and where exactly is money going to? So when forex reserves are piling up, automatically the stock market will go up. Who the people actually trade in the stock market? Only the people having the surplus money, but not the poor people or the middle class people. Only the rich people will do the trading in the stock market. So once the forex reserves are piling up, there is a lot of flow into the country. Automatically, stock markets will also boom. The stock markets will boom. Finally, results in the increase in the wealth of the rich people only. So, for every sentence, there is a lot of meaning, but because of the time constraint, I'm not able to explain everything. But please uh, flag each and every statement, try to understand, try to come up with answer for every statement. So it's helping create wealth, that's powering sales of Maybach. So that's all. When the government collects less taxes than it spends, more money is staying in private hands. But are they right hands? Probably not. This is again another statement. So now the meaning of the statement is the government is not able to collect the taxes. The tax to GDP ratio is only 10%. If there are 100 people who are supposed to pay the taxes, only 10 people are getting, 10 people are able to pay taxes because the inefficiency in the system. Whereas in the Western world and the advanced countries, at least 40 to 50% of the people will pay the taxes. So the inefficiency is being penalized on the poor people or the salaried employees. The salaried employees are nothing but the captive audience. We cannot go anywhere. So my salary is 1 lakh. I am supposed to pay 30% tax. But whereas the rich people who are evading the taxes, avoiding the taxes, the government is not able to do anything. So that is the reason the total tax to GDP ratio is not even 10%. After the pandemic, it has come down to around 8 to 9%. So the inefficiencies of the government are just pushing towards the poor people. But anyhow, the money is flowing onto the rich people. Whether the rich people are good hands or bad hands, so probably not. So again, it has a lot of meaning. So securing and administering vaccine should have been the first priority. But of course, I don't want to delve further on this. That's totally different topic. But what they suggested is instead of spending on some other activities, the government should have spent more on the vaccine administration. Even today, it is not even 12% of the total people got vaccinated. And even though some 35,000 crores was actually budgeted in the budget, I don't know how much was the amount spent on the vaccination. So anyhow, this is all referring to the budget, the vaccination. So the total budget, the burden on the vaccination comes to just 0.8% of the GDP. It is nothing. So according to one of the British Columbia economist Amartya Lahiri. So here, right, so 5%. So this is all referring to the vaccination. Now the localized lockdowns are relaxed. 23 million daily wage workers who have lost their jobs have to go out to rebuild their lives. The salaried class is also not happy because 8.5 million jobs were lost last year, and this year, as I already mentioned, 15 million people have already lost their jobs. On the other hand, replaced by gig economy. Gig economy means contract workers. So the permanent jobs are replaced by the contract workers. So that's all. So let me tell you very frankly, this is a wonderful article. I request all of you to read this article, but every sentence has a lot of meaning. Every sentence becomes one essay. Every sentence can be asked as a question in civil's main examination. But at the same time, be very, very careful. Let us not be totally skeptical. This is only one side of the picture, and you have to project the other side of the picture also. Therefore, you have to balance the total essay. So my request to all of you, take each of the statement as one essay question with 250 words, try to answer. So elaborate the question, you put both positives and negatives, finally balance with 250 words. Every statement is a question. So that's all from my side.